All right, call this meeting to order this morning. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please silence all your cell phones and take a moment of silent prayer. I'll begin the roll call this morning with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Vicki Cause.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Culbertson's here. Public comment. I have two people signed up for public comment. Joe Herring, would you come forward and state your name and address for the record, please?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Joe.
Herring,
Joe.
Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street, Leavenworth, Kansas. Have one rezone case of mine on the agenda today. I believe the Planning Commission passed it. I believe it's unanimously. Meets the comp plan. Just here to answer any questions or available to answer any questions during that portion of the hearing if need be. That was it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Lewis Klemp, please come forward and state your address for the record.
That's going to be great that Louis Clinton dies, you know. Like I said, I got 15 more years to go. I'm going to be at 101, so I'm going to hang in there. It's going to be disappointing. Okay, it's nice to see all these people here. It's a shame they're not here every meeting, every city meeting. I'm going to be real quick. This is what we don't have an county appraiser anymore. If anybody doesn't know that, that is a state appraiser. That is a state appraiser. County appraiser, and he doesn't pay, Kelly doesn't pay any rent, and she's got $4 billion. I'm appealing this many pieces of property, okay? If everybody in the state would appeal, you'd shut it down because there's over 100 million pieces of property. But they don't care. They just like to whine and bitch and cry about it. That's just part of life. You want to put up a flagpole in Leavenworth? These are the rules for putting up a flagpole. How ridiculous. Museums are going ahead. History keeps moving slowly. Prisons, people. God, am I running into people with history? Does anybody care about history? There are some people, but not very many, because they're not doing anything about history. You're getting a few good people working at a few good places. So, people in charge of history are doing good. The state, they debate. They get a piece of free history, like the hanging apparatus out at the state pen, and they don't want to share it with anybody. They're in control of it. It's ungodly. But it's interesting. You wonder what are the people doing about property tax? I once in the 80s was talking to a guy what it should be. You buy a house, that's what your taxes are the rest of your life. When you sell the house, it moves up to from $100,000, it moves up to $200,000 or $300,000. But we don't care about the elderly that live in Leavenworth. Let them die on their stupid Social Security, which is ridiculous, okay? What are you guys doing? God, as much as we vote for you because we like you, $785,000 for a bridge, $765,000 for a bridge, $1,564,000 for a bridge, $25,254 for something else. I don't know how much money you guys can spend, but somebody needs to take care, at least they're my elderly. If you don't care about any of the Leavenworth citizens that are elderly, that's a shame on you. You take care of the elderly, you take care of the kids, the people that are working, making the big money. $84,000 the average salary in Leavenworth. Isn't that ridiculous? My biggest paycheck for TWA as a pilot was less than $100,000. Now that's flying 160 people 2 or 3 times a day around the country. And it was less than $100,000, and now the average salary is $84,000. At least that's what the paper said, but the paper is not the Leavenworth Times anymore. It's the Lansing Times and Sayonara, And thank you for the timer, which is extremely rude to the people. We didn't have that back in the 80s, and we didn't have it in the 90s. It's rude to the people. Let them talk. What do we use? 6-year minutes or 5-year minutes? I'll sit through and see if I can get something for the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Clint. Do we have anybody else signed up for public comment? I don't have anybody on the list. Anybody in the room? Nope. Seeing none, we'll move on to administrative business. Do you have anything, Mr. Lothery, this morning? Okay. I've got something I'll bring up afterwards. National Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation. We have a proclamation this month I'm going to read. Whereas in the federal fiscal year 2022, nearly 3.1 million children received either an investigation response or alternative response. And whereas child abuse and neglect are serious problems affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And our children are our most valuable resources and will shape the future of Leavenworth County, Kansas. And child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Culberson, Leavenworth County Chairman, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in Leavenworth County, Kansas, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. In witness thereof, set my hand affixed to this seal of County of Leavenworth. April 3rd, 2024. Do we have Kelly? Did you want to come up and say something?
Good morning, Commissioners. First of all, let me say that today is not the day to bring pinwheels anywhere because you probably had video of me chasing blue pinwheels all out front. So use it if you want to. You may get a good laugh. But anyway, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. I'm Deborah Lyles with First Judicial District CASA Association. Our Executive Director, Kelly Meyer, is here, and Carolyn Schreiner, who is the Director of our Child Advocacy Center. We just want you to know that in Leavenworth County, we served over 200 children last year, and that doesn't include the caretakers, anyone else in the case, the families. So it's just 200 children, and that's 200 too many. We want to work ourselves out of a job. So we, again, thank you. The blue pinwheel is the national official symbol of child abuse prevention. So I brought this. We're going to give out pinwheels all week. I think we're going to plant pinwheel gardens all over Leavenworth just to remind everyone that it is Child Abuse Prevention Month. You can display these. Please feel free to take one. We are just on fire for these children, and it is a labor of love what we do. So please, please, please celebrate Child Abuse Prevention Month with us. Prevention is the key.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question,
Sure.
just for the audience?
Sure.
Could you describe what CASA does and their mission?
So First Judicial is actually an umbrella to three separate but kind of intertwining organizations. First, we have CASA, where we train volunteers to actually advocate for children who are in foster care because of abuse and neglect. So once they're removed from the home, our trained CASAs go in and advocate for that child or sibling set. The second organization is we have a Child Exchange and Visitation Center where when there's a ruling that supervised visitation needs to happen, that those visits happen at our facility, and that is a safe, neutral space for that most important family time that the children and the parents need. The third organization is the Child Advocacy Center, and that is where children, youth coming in have a voice. They have a safe, neutral space again to tell their story, to tell the truth, to tell what happened, and we listen to them, and then we set in motion resources, family advocates, anything they need that gets them on a great path to hopefully thrive.
Excellent.
Thank you all again.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good question. Yeah, let's take a photo. I think. Let's see. Stuff you got a camera.
Yeah, well, if I can hide that for you.
Yes.
We got her surrounded.
I got my shirt on.
We'll hold it for a while this morning.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Bill, will you hand me that camera? I'm right back in the seat. Okay. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, further administrative business. I do, but
On that proclamation.
do I have a copy of government?
Should be in your packet.
Here it is.
I got it, you don't.
National Government Month Proclamation. Whereas the nation's 3,069 counties, serving more than 330 million Americans, provide essential services to create healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. And whereas counties fulfill a vast range of responsibilities and deliver services that touch nearly every aspect of our residents' lives. And whereas Leavenworth County and all counties take pride in our responsibility to protect and enhance the health, well-being, and safety of our residents in efficient and cost-effective ways. And whereas under the leadership of the National Association of Counties President Mary Jo McGuire, NACO is highlighting county leadership through the lens Forward Together, celebrating the role of county governments in connecting, inspiring, and leading as an intergovernmental partners. And whereas the role includes the responsibility to inspire county residents to engage with their communities and to lead by highlighting our strength as intergovernmental partners. And whereas each year since 1991, the National Association of Counties has encouraged counties across the country to elevate awareness of county responsibilities, programs, and services. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jeff Culberson, Chairman of the Leavenworth County Commission, do hereby proclaim April 24th as National County Government Month and encourage all county officials, employees, schools, and residents to participate in county government celebration activities. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand affixed to the seal of Leavenworth County this 3rd day of April 2024 as National County Government Month.
Very good, Jeff.
I don't think anybody else is up to talk about that, are they? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes, sir.
we start on more administrative business, I'd like to recognize Mayor Freeze and a lot of the elected officials from Tonganoxie are in the audience today.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Appreciate them being here.
Thanks for coming.
Morning, Dave.
We have
City
City
Commissioner.
Commissioner.
And,
Ed, is Ed back there?
He's here every week.
Ed's here all the time.
Yeah.
Was there any other administrative business any of the commissioners
I had one thing.
Okay.
About a week and a half ago, Jefferson County
passed a resolution that says they are a non-sanctuary county.
Yes,
The
sir.
reason I bring that up is heard that there's some discussion with Core Civic with the city of Leavenworth, and that facility, there's funding for that facility through that last budget, so that facility could open up, and we just want to make sure it's not a catch and release program.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I've been talking to Commissioner Walbridge over there, and I was going to get a copy of that resolution.
I got it.
Then, okay, there you go. And bring that up in administrative business here in the short future and see if we would like to do something similar to that. So,
Could we have that drafted and brought back to us?
I can get with our county counselor and work that up if you guys want.
You want to adopt a resolution similar to what Jefferson County adopted. That's
Yeah. Have you guys had a chance to look at it?
I hadn't had a chance to look
Okay.
at it,
So over the next week, let me get with our counselor and see what we can work up, and then put that on the agenda for probably the next week. Does that work? I think that's a good idea.
An executive order closed it. I think an executive order could open it back up.
Yeah.
And
I do too.
maybe do something different with it.
The biggest.
Dovetailing onto that, I did listen to the comments from the mayor of Leavenworth at the meeting, and he actually took the opportunity to poll the audience at the meeting on Monday what their opinion was on the ICE proposal, support or opposition. So that makes his decision to poll the folks at that meeting leads me to believe that that's exactly what their conversations are involving. So my view would be that on top of what your proposal, I'd also think it'd be appropriate to send a letter of opposition to the city from the county. I think we saw through the process when this was being discussed, we were negotiating with them, and they informed us that if anyone was caught and brought here, it was supposed to be someone that had been detained in the United States for committing a crime and was going to be sent back to their country of origin. And when ICE first communicated with us, they were going to return the detainee back to where they were detained to be released. And then as things progressed several weeks later, they changed their position. They were going to release them at the bus station or release them at MCI. Locally. And then even as things progressed further, we learned that if the court ordered them released, they would be released right here in our community. And this is a very, very concerning thing. I received more emails on this from constituents than on any other issue except for one issue down south at the beginning of my term. So I think people are concerned. Once you open the door for this, they're here and they're going to be released in your community. So I think a letter to the city opposing it would.
So there is a lot to be concerned about, but also at the same time, remember on the back burner though that Core Civic is our biggest taxpayer in Leavenworth County. They paid almost $1 million a year in taxes. So we do want to try to work something out to keep them operating, but we got to be very careful what that something is.
Well, when they had the Marshal Service holding folks, that was fine, but bringing illegal immigrants here as a detention center, you read the articles nationally about how these detention centers are being handled by the federal government. They are releasing folks right in the local community.
Yeah, and that's
what. And I think we should definitely take a position to the city and let the city know we are not supportive of that approach.
That's what we want to watch out for.
So
duly noted.
And it may come down to, it may not be a city, have the city's blessing or the county's blessing.
That's right.
I mean, because
we'll figure
where
that
else
out.
are you going to find a facility that's turnkey, ready to go, this close to an international airport?
You know, what I saw with this, excuse me, Mike, what I saw with this, Marshall Detention Center, I thought was a pretty good place. Most prisons are going to have issues. It's just part of being that. And I take a different look at it if we close that border. I could actually sit back and say, okay, we got some rules in place that we're going to abide. But as long as that border is open and all those states are getting flooded, at this time there is no way in the world I can support that. Now, maybe in a year it would come down and maybe someone else gets in office. I don't know who, but somebody come in and say, hey, we're finally going to fix this problem. But there's just too much destruction, and I will not place the residents of Leavenworth County in that position until they fix it. Again, if they would fix it and do something to stop that, it may be a different conversation I would have.
Yeah, we got to make sure we don't bring the
We
border
just
right
hope
here.
it's in our control.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
It just hopes that we can be the ones that control that.
We just want to make sure we don't bring the border issues here in our backyard.
So could we have a letter drafted to the city? Is that a?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, we probably need to know some more details though before we do that. So,
Yeah, I'd like to hear
We're
more.
jumping the gun.
Yeah,
on
we're not ready to draft a letter yet.
Yeah, bring it
Yeah,
back.
once we know some more, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the third thing is New Jersey state legislature passed a law saying that local communities could not allow immigrant detention centers or these private prison contracts with immigrant detention centers. And so a third letter that I would suggest that we entertain is asking our state legislators to prohibit these type of agreements being made with local communities because they're obviously not being honest in what they're saying about where these folks are going to be released.
Are you aware that Senator Marshall has sponsored and works with a facility in Topeka for the children?
Well,
I'm
certain that's quite different than a local
but
agreement.
But I'm just saying that we need to be careful with what we would ask the state to legislate as far as.
I don't want to get too far down the road either, Mike. I think what you brought up was a good starting point, and I think we need to have some discussion on it.
More information.
Well, we need to protect the folks here in Leavenworth County.
Absolutely.
It should be non-sanctuary.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Anybody have anything else?
I don't.
So I have one thing. A person has reached out to me about leasing a FEMA buyout lot that's in the county's name. You guys are familiar with those. When FEMA buys a lot out, it can never be built on again, has to remain in the local government's name, city or county. We've got a lot that's in the county's name. Nothing's being done with it. It's right next to the new RV park that's in Easton. They're looking to expand like some of their groundkeeping facility or whatever they want to do with it, but they're wanting to lease that. So I was going to see if it's all right, consensus of the board, to have county councilor work on preparing a lease to them for that FEMA lot next to the RV park. They already know they can't build anything on it, all the conditions that FEMA puts on it. So
What would be the use for it if it's?
Just parking.
basically maintain it because it's grown up in weeds. The county has to maintain it. So the biggest advantage is the county won't have to maintain it anymore. They'll keep the grass mowed on it and
Can we
keeping it look nice.
Just donate it to them?
We can't get rid of it.
You
It
can't.
has to
Get rid of it
remain.
ever.
Yeah, it has to remain in the local government's name forever.
What size?
I don't have any problem as long as we get the information back in front of us again.
Right.
Yeah.
And at least we can talk about it.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we're clear on everything we're looking at before we jump too quick. But
Yeah.
it sounds
You'll
like
get
a
all
win.
that.
It sounds like a win-win,
You'll
Joe.
get all
Well,
that
it can be
information
as long
together.
as it's understood that nothing can go on there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing is that, sometimes
Right.
things just
Yeah,
kind
you
of
want-
happen
Okay.
along the
That's
way.
a for buyout agreement.
Mr. Van Paris, can you work on that and get the lease together for it? Thank you, sir. That's all I think we have for administrative business. Ready for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. No further discussion. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
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 Aye. Consent agenda passes. Formal board actions. Motion to approve Board Order 24-4, vacating an unopened, unused road right-of-way section of Evans Road in the vicinity of Evans Road and 228th Street.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. This matter comes before you upon a request by a property owner affected by this section of Evans Road, as well as review of the road records by Public Works staff and GIS Department and County Surveyor. Earlier today, reference was made to the history of Leavenworth County, and Leavenworth County is very historic to include significant amount of road dedications that have never been opened, and there is no contemplation that they ever will be opened. Unfortunately, some of these dedicated road right-of-ways, I've seen them run through the middle of houses. In this case, it covers an existing residential driveway, and it extends into basically woods. The property owners would like to have the dedicated road right-of-way unopened, certainly unused, vacated to facilitate future use of their property. Currently, although it's unopened, it's dedicated public right-of-way. Anyone in this room or anybody in this, anyone can travel upon what is presumed to be private property when in fact it is not.
Okay.
So this is really kind of a housekeeping matter. These matters come before you from time to time. Notice was provided both by publication and certified mailing to the adjoining property owners. I did receive a phone call recently from one of the adjoining property owners who supported the vacation. They were unaware that there was a road through their property. So with that stated, I'd answer any questions, but my recommendation to you, and I think it's a staff recommendation as well, is that the board order vacating this section of Evans Road be approved.
And it requires a public hearing.
No.
No? Okay.
Well, you could, Commissioner, it was published. There's no specific requirement for a public hearing as opposed to, say, planning and zoning matters, but you could open it up for any public comment.
What's up? It's listed as a public hearing.
That's it.
You want to, just to make sure, you do want to, okay, Jeff.
It's on the agenda.
So we'll go ahead and open a public hearing then on the matter. Do we have any opposition to vacating this section of Evans Road? Hearing and seeing none. Do we have anyone who wants to speak besides what we've already heard for closing, vacating this particular section of road?
It's just, these roads are all over properties, all over the
Yeah,
county.
yeah.
And most people don't even know it.
238 of them.
Yeah. Is there?
Yeah, there's 238
Got it down to the number.
platted roads that are not physically
Right,
there,
right.
that
They
people
just-
usually don't even know they're
Yeah,
platted right away.
but they're usually on a section line or something.
Yep,
too.
yep,
This
that's
is
exactly
not,
right.
so- Or it's sort of.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion then.
We'll close the public hearing then, hearing no further discussion.
Go ahead, Mike.
I move that we approve Board Order 2024-4 vacating an unopened, unused road right-of-way section of Evans Road in the vicinity of Evans Road and 228th Street.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second, and for further discussion, I just want to make sure I ask on public record the question, this does not landlock any properties, correct?
It does not.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll begin voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
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 I vote aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next, consider a motion to approve community corrections to utilize the opiate settlement funding from municipalities fighting addiction fund to reimburse the guidance center for benefits and to provide sustainability for adult cognitive programs.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
It's wonderful to be able to celebrate Child Abuse Prevention Month because that's so much of what Community Corrections provides with juvenile intake and the families that we're working with on our prevention grants. So it's wonderful that we were able to do that this morning. The request we're coming to you for today is just to continue to utilize the opiate settlement disbursements that are coming into the county. As you know, we came before you last June and asked to use the first several disbursements to begin implementing adult programs to serve individuals under supervision with in-house and free treatment that is obviously much needed for addiction. We would love to be able to continue to use those funds to sustain that position. And as part of the Sunflower Grant that we received for the jail mental health liaison to address issues related to substance use, mental health, and co-occurring related illnesses in the jail, that grant only covered up to 25% of the benefits, and we knew as recipients of that award we would need to find an additional funding source. But as that is approved to use for opiate settlements on the state side, we know that it's an approved use for those funds to continue to supplement the cost of benefits through the local addiction settlement funds.
Very good.
Question for
Yes, sir.
these funds. I necessitate you'll have to continually come every year back to us for renewal.
Yes, Commissioner.
And how much is this a fund that is going to be like slowly? The amount will slowly be going down.
I'm not sure if we know exactly what to expect. I know that Kansas is supposed to be receiving opiate settlement disbursements for the next 18 years. I believe that some of the money is supposed to be, anticipated on the front end as opposed to the back end. But eventually the payments will run out, and we do anticipate the need to find additional funding sources. However, the state has, I believe, like $230 million of the state funds available. So as we, use the local funds, we're going to continue to apply for grants to avoid requesting, funding from the general fund or whatever.
So, and we've talked about this many times when you've been here, but just for information, when the clients you deal with, folks you help, what % would you say are having issues with drug or alcohol?
Probably 98% have drug and alcohol related issues on supervision, but only 92% of them, as of last June, were struggling with clinical. So, anybody can recreationally get caught with drugs that, they might be in their car or whatever because of the people they're associating with. But as far as individuals struggling with clinical addiction, whether that be alcohol, opiates, stimulants, whatever that is, it's 92%.
And if an adolescent starts on drugs or alcohol at a younger age, is it true that it's much easier for them to become addicted?
Oh, absolutely. So the state recidivism rate in 2017 for juvenile offenders in Kansas was 89%. That means that 89% of all youth that were incarcerated or detained as juveniles were likely to reoffend as adult offenders. And as you know, the reason child abuse and prevention is so important, and the reason we run juvenile intake, which allows us to assist law enforcement 24/7, 365, is we are the first contact for those youth that come in that are abused and neglected. We allow youth to stay in our office. We assess them for their mental health issues, for detainment criteria, so that law enforcement can get back on the street. And it's so important that the work that we do, because it also allows all of my adult probation staff to see how many of these adult offenders were once kids that were in the system, the welfare system, as a result of generational addiction, generational mental health, generational trauma. And unfortunately, those rates are higher in criminal justice and corrections backgrounds because of the work that we do, and often taking home that stress-related illness and not being able to turn that off because we see so much trauma, whether it's in law enforcement responding to, vehicular accidents and fatalities or what have you not. We have higher rates of domestic violence and mental health issues, and unfortunately in any community that has as many families and is as large as Leavenworth, we're going to see those numbers reflected, whether it's at CASA or in juvenile intake. I can tell you last year we saw 177 youth just in Leavenworth County that were coming in, whether it be juvenile offenses or as abuse and neglect cases. And that it might only be one or two, but then you find out there are more kids in the home. So it's really important that, while we have a lot of funding on the juvenile side, it's oftentimes our adult probation clients who are having these children. But if we don't help them deal with their addiction and their trauma and their mental health, it's just a never-ending cycle.
And I think that one of the important things, not only for addiction side, but that the earlier that an individual, so children begin the use of or experimentation in the use of alcohol, drugs, tobacco, any of those things, that the human body is not finished developing until it's about 24 years old. That includes the brain, the lungs, the heart, your entire system. And so when addiction kicks in with young people that are under that age, all kinds of not only mental health and addiction issues, but issues with their organs. The organs do not develop properly or completely, so there's a lot of other consequences to early use and abuse of drugs and alcohol. So there's so many other things that go into it. And when somebody can hit, if you can prevent the use of those substances until somebody's about 24 years old, the likelihood of addiction is reduced substantially.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve community corrections to utilize the opiate settlement funding for municipalities fighting addiction fund to reimburse the Guidance Center for benefits and provide sustainability for adult cognitive programs.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, but thank you. Appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Begin voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Jamie. Next, formal board action to consider a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-9 and approve the rezoning as outlined in case DEV 24004 based on the findings of the golden factors as set forth in the staff report and as substantiated by the findings of fact as adopted by the Planning Commission. Morning, John.
Morning.
How are you guys?
Good morning. Before you is case DEV 24004. As you read it, it's Resolution 2024-09. The applicant is requesting to rezone their property at, let's make sure I get this right, 22323, 22027, and 00000 Tongnoxie Drive from RR5 to RR 2.5. This was reviewed by staff, and staff made a recommendation to approve the request primarily because it does comply with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, which has this area designated for residential 2.5 minimum acreage. The Planning Commission did consider this at their March meeting, and as you can see, they voted to recommend approval by an 8-0 vote with one person absent. So if you have any other questions, please let staff know. The rest of the information is in your staff report.
On here it says, I see what the Planning Commission does, but down the last paragraph, second paragraph, it says staff recommends denial.
I think that's on the next one.
Oh, okay, I apologize. Oh, there it is, okay.
Anybody have any other questions for staff?
Okay.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I approve to adopt Resolution 2024-9 and approve the rezoning as outlined in case DEV 24-004 based on the findings of the golden factors as set forth in the staff report and is substantiated by the findings of fact as adopted by the Planning Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, begin voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 4-1 abstention. Next, consider a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-10 and approve the rezoning as outlined in case DEV 24-005 based on the findings and the golden factors as set forth in the staff report and as substantiated by the findings of fact as adopted by the Planning Commission.
All right. This is case DEV 24005, which is a rezoning request for the property located at 00000 Kansas Avenue. They are requesting to rezone their property from PR1 to RR5. So PR1, as some of you might recall, is a zoning district in the County Road 1 corridor. That was a lengthy process where the entire corridor was rezoned to zoning districts to match the potential density that would happen if County Road 1 or when County Road 1 does start to develop out. This property obviously was included in that rezoning. The applicant is requesting to revert back to the rezoning before that rezoning had occurred, which is RR5. Staff did recommend denial because it did not comply with our future land use map, which was obviously the County Road 1 rezoning recommendation. But the Planning Commission did recommend approval on a vote from 8-0 with 1 absent to recommend you guys rezone this to RR5. To answer your question, Commissioner Smith, staff did recommend denial. However, if the consideration for approving a rezone was considered, we would recommend that they did RR 2.5 because that is what is adjacent zoning.
That's what I was looking at. Okay.
However, the Planning Commission just chose to move forward with the request as it
What
was
was the
submitted.
Planning Commission's reason?
I think they were fine with the RR5 zoning. I don't think they really gave a reason as to why they would keep it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any reason why if we went to 2.5 that would impede their development that they're requesting?
No, and that was a lengthy discussion we had during the Planning Commission meeting. I think the applicant was concerned that it would impede, but they can develop at a 5-acre density to meet what their hopes in developing the property would in the RR 2.5 zoning district.
Is there, is it to be consistent? That's the question I have.
Well, I think the bigger issue probably is that the Planning Commission recommended a 5-acre rezoning, and if we were to modify it, or
I can't hear you.
If the commission
I have
were
railroad
to,
ears.
if the commission were to modify the Planning Commission's recommendation, you would have to have a supermajority to make that happen. I think from a staff standpoint, 5 acres really, 2.5 and 5 acres is not a lot of difference between the two. So we don't have an issue with the Planning Commission's recommendation at all.
I think part of that was families want to build houses. They own it.
So, in that case, I'm going to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-10 and approve the rezoning as outlined in case DEV 24-005 based on the findings of golden factors as set forth in the staff report and as substantiated by the findings of fact as adopted by the Planning Commission.
I'll second your motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll begin the vote with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next, consider a motion to determine the annexation proposed by the City of Tonganoxie, Kansas, embodied by Resolution 02-2401, will hinder the proper growth and development of the area. Who wants to take this one?
Take the
Good morning
lead.
again, Commissioners, this is the third time this matter has been brought before you under 3 separate ordinances. The real issue that I've identified in the staff report prepared to you or presented to you is the issue of the clarity of the legal description used in the annexation ordinance, the map that was used in the annexation ordinance, and other records maintained by the county. You've been presented with an email that the Public Works Department prepared, which I think details the uncertainties that they have in their mind as to clarity or lack thereof of the legal description and the ordinance itself. That being stated, the issue, I would tell you, is not academic. Substantial compliance with the concept of the general area that is proposed to be annexed is certainly accomplished. And to the credit of the City of Tonganoxie, they did change their plan to meet what you identified in the first, I'll call it phase 1 of this matter. That is to take the entirety of that, for want of a better term, triangle-ish area. And they propose to do so. The lack of clarity comes when you begin to deal with the interface of the proposed annexation area and county road rights-of-way. Do they go to the center of the right-of-way? Do they stop at the edge of the right-of-way or not? And I believe that's somewhat unclear at this point in time. It's not academic in that if the city boundaries end at the edge of county road right-of-way, This commission would control the access points on those roads. And you will possibly shortly be presented with an issue of a variance that is being requested due to that very same fact circumstance. In other words, the city boundary ends, and you're on the county, but you're not on the road. So you're going to have to cross unincorporated territory to get to the road, which is going to require a county permit, and it would also require compliance with county road frontage policy, which, given that the county road entrance policy is really designed for unincorporated areas, could cause conflict in the future. I'm presenting that to you as it's been identified to me by staff. I know that you have representatives of the city of Tonganoxie present who perhaps address these issues. The real point is this. If an annexation is to go through, and I believe this commission supports the idea of Tonganoxie annexing this area, it should be done with sufficient clarity that it does not lead to future uncertainties, future actions that could potentially negatively impact the development of that area. And that concludes my presentation to you.
Mr. Van Perry's, so you're saying a MOU or some kind of interlocal agreement on road maintenance could resolve any of these issues, or if they take the whole road?
Commissioners, a road agreement between two municipalities can clarify and correct any of the uncertainties that I just identified.
And we don't have that.
But we don't have an MOU in place on this particular.
There is an MOU that currently exists between the city of Tonganoxie and the county, but that expires in a couple of months, and the county has already.
But this road was never in on.
Yeah, and it would not address this road.
It would not address this road. Because when that MOU or interlocal agreement, whatever they had, would have been before the industrial park.
So my whole point on these annexations was when you go to the center of the road, it causes lots of problems, specifically with maintenance and law enforcement and issuing permits and everything else. So I'm still on the point that if they're going to annex a piece of property, they need to take the entire right-of-way next to that piece of property. In the old days, it was just a simple mistake. They were using the legal description of the property, which all the time usually went to the center of the road. So they just were copying the legal description. They didn't really pay attention that it wasn't including half the road, it only included the other half of the road. So I understand a lot of the problems that creates for them to take the whole road. So in my opinion, we need to have the MOU because we lose the leverage. If we go ahead and give them the annexation, we lose the leverage of getting the MOU done at all, or at least, the way it needs to be done. So I feel like we need to do the MOU first before the annexation. Yes, sir.
A couple things. Up to this point in the discussion with the city, we have never been stating to them that we were mandating that we had an MOU. That's one. And now, to me, that would be a changing in the terms of the negotiations if we now say we have to have an MOU before we can adopt this.
Because we were waiting to see if they were going to take the entire route.
But we've been through this several times, and we did not, as a body, say that they had to meet that term. If that was going to be our term, we should have cited that at the very beginning of this. But the second thing is, I had a question for Ms. Brown or Mr. Van Paris. If we adopt this, is the legal description only ancillary to the agreement? Can we adopt this and the legal description then be defined post-adoption?
No.
Commissioner, this is a city resolution, and if you adopt it, you're adopting it as drafted. Now, in an annexation, it's important to understand the clear intent of the parties could clear up any misinterpretations with the legal description or scrivener's error. It's my understanding, but the city is here to address it, that the clear intent was not to annex to the center line of the roadway. And so then that becomes a policy decision for this commission is whether or not annexing the road to the center line or not doing it would hinder the proper growth and development.
Okay. I'd certainly like to hear from the city about what their stance is.
I think there's, yes.
Morning.
Morning. State your name, please, for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. I'm Anna Kirstelich. I'm the City Attorney for Tonganoxie. We have met once before. It was very brief. We didn't have a chance to get into the details here. I do want to, I think you raised a very key question, Commissioner Stephen, about the legal description and whether that is a critical part of the board's consideration. Here for an island annexation, the statute says it's KSA 12-520C, subsection A. The governing body of any city may by ordinance annex land not adjoining the city if the following conditions exist. 1, the land is located in the same county as the city. No issue there. 2, the owners of the land petition for or consent in writing to the annexation of the land. We do have that here as well. And 3, the Board of County Commissioners of the county by a 2/3 vote of the members thereof, so in this case we would need 4 votes in the affirmative, find and determine that the annexation of the land will not hinder or prevent the proper growth and development of the area or that of any other incorporated city located within the county. Doesn't address, obviously legal description is not one of those components necessarily, but we want the legal descriptions to be accurate. The legal descriptions that were used were those that were in the deeds to the property owners. So that's the land that was submitted as part of a petition requesting annexation. And then there was some discussion about a potential 30-foot gap, along 222nd Street. Perhaps it wasn't artfully done in terms of the legal description for that area, but without doing any damage to the existing legal description that has already been prepared for that land, made my best effort to make it clear that we were including that half, the western half of 222nd Street that is along the unplatted portion of the property. That's the triangular parcel at the top. And that is directly adjacent to the business park, where the eastern half of the right-of-way is already in the city. So the intent here is to take that western half of 222nd Street, where the city already has the eastern half, and then not any further south, because the property on the other side of the road is not in the city. So
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The legal description, does it match the diagram on the document?
The city surveyor, we've had some discussion. We had a discussion on Monday. It was me, Misty, the city surveyor, and then some county staff. I know the county surveyor, Mr. Knoll. And there was discussion about that. The city surveyor's position is that the meets and bounds legal description of the subdivision or of the plat does not include right-of-way. My understanding from county staff, and correct me if I misstate any of this, but was that the diagram shows the lot lines going to the center of the right-of-way, and the acreage count also appears to include that land that's in the right-of-way. However, our position is that the legal description controls the meets and bounds legal description of what property was platted. So we do not believe that those lot descriptions, when you refer to a lot, that it includes half of the right-of-way.
So what you're saying is the diagram does not match the actual legal description?
That appears to be the case. And that's in plats that are beginning in, I believe, 2016, around there, most recently replatted in 2023. So those are in plats that were accepted and recorded.
So if you were coming up with a solution to this, what would your suggestion be?
Well, I would like to proceed, obviously, as we have proposed, where we just take the right-of-way adjacent to a right-of-way that's already within the city. And I do also want to address the comment about, I think those can be worked out. We can work out the legal description or any questions about.
Well, we haven't worked them out so far. It's been 3 times.
So to clarify this, Does the annexation that is being proposed include all of the right-of-way adjacent to the city's island annex? Or does it include half of the right-of-way?
It includes all of the right-of-way between the northern portion of the area proposed to be annexed and the business park. Does not include any of the remaining right-of-way. And the city would welcome an opportunity to discuss an RMA with the county. As noted, the county recently terminated the RMA that already was in place, and it didn't include this road specifically. But we're more than happy to talk about that. Of course, we don't want to negotiate something like that live. We do not feel that should be a condition to this, particularly when we have owners who are seeking annexation in order to pursue an electrical substation that's going to improve electric service in the southern portion of the county, not just the city. So yes, we would like to proceed with this if possible. And
if we reject this, does this delay the project?
Absolutely. It's already been delayed several months.
The project you're wanting to break ground?
Yeah. Good morning, Commissioners. Scott Ward with Evergy.
Please come to the microphone.
We got to have you up there so everybody can hear online.
Sorry. Good morning, Commissioners. Scott Lord with Evergy. So with the electrical substation that was referred to, we do have an in-service date of, I believe it's December of 2028 is what we're looking for. But just with material lead time and engineering and everything, we don't start that process until we know we have a site to develop. As of right now, we have been sitting and waiting for the approval of this so that we can start that process. So yes, the further this gets delayed of not getting approved, the further our process gets delayed. And like she mentioned earlier, it's not just for the city of Tonganoxie. It is going to provide for the county too.
I had a question for staff. What's a reasonable amount of time to come up with an MOU or an interlocal agreement on these roads?
Well, that's a rather indeterminate
I meant what would be a reasonable amount of time to table this until we could come up with an MOU or an
Well, I believe the city commission of the city of Tonganoxie meets twice monthly. This board meets weekly, dependent upon the degree of disagreement or questions that come up. I would say realistically at least 60 to 90 days.
The issue at hand remains that we are no longer interested in or whatever. We want to make certain that when these types of things are happening, annexations or anything else, that we do not have
Split the road.
Not split the road. I mean, that's the issue right now, is not splitting the road. The road needs to be included in and that has not, I mean, obviously that is not happening. Well, for one portion, but it is not. And what the request of the county, and that is because the county is maintaining that will in fact potentially hinder the proper growth and development of the area. Correct? I mean, that is the position of the Board of County Commissioners?
That's my position.
That's mine too.
I'm just trying to get clarity because that seems to be the sticking point. That seems to be what is holding up this entire process. That just is what I'm...
Accurate legal description.
Right, but I'm just...
But the city's not stated that they're in opposition to that, taking the road.
We're not in opposition to entering into a road maintenance agreement, but we do not believe that should be a condition to the board's finding in this under these circumstances.
I don't think that we should make a change in our negotiations right now to say that now we're going to require an agreement on the roads, because we never said that up to now. But on the other hand, it seems like we need to have a proper legal description that matches the diagram and is appropriate. And this road issue, as far as you don't disagree on, your stance is not that you have to leave it the way it is with the road. Are you willing to take the road? Is that their position?
The position is that we're willing to take the road where the other side is already in the city. So just along the business park. We've got some conflicting issues here, obviously. I mean, there's some concerns about cities taking half of the road right of way and then what happens with the other half. So we were trying to be respectful of that and not take half of the road right of way all the way around, especially when there's a property to the south, to the southern portion of the area to be annexed that is residential property and was not included in this. So there'd be a gap there. So we're trying to be respectful of the county's requests as well as addressing the other concerns in terms of, we have half of the road already for 222nd Street. There's another half. And again, too, I would also say that there are plenty of areas around the city where there wasn't a condition associated with taking the whole road. There's half road ownership. The roads are being maintained, and we have two governmental entities involved. I would like to think that we could come to an agreement between those entities.
And that's the agreement we're talking about. We didn't propose to make it a condition that if you don't have an MOU, we're not going to pass the annex. What we're saying is the annexes from now on, it makes 0 sense to split a road in the middle. Half the road's in the right of way, the other half's in the city, the other half's in the county. We're trying to stop that from happening. So if an MOU would fix that issue, then that's fine. We're just saying if you want us to approve the annex or disapprove the annex, we've already said, and we did say, Mike, from the beginning in this issue, we're not going to do any more annexations that split the road down the middle.
We did not say we were going to require a road agreement, though, prior.
No, we didn't say that. But we said no more half-street annexes.
First of all, to be clear on this, it doesn't take the road to the middle of the right of way to the middle of the road. It doesn't take any of the right of way in the area that we have concerns with. And the reason we have concerns with that is who controls the access points, what policies are implied, and what that does to the orderly development of that area. By not knowing who controls that, whether it's the whole right-of-way or not, this doesn't even address to the middle of the right-of-way, which is really where the access points come in. So whether the commission would like for them to take the entire right-of-way, the fact that they're not taking any of the right-of-way is what's causing concern for staff and what we believe and what we've told you all, that this creates a problem for future orderly development.
Right, that's why I said
Do you acknowledge that?
Come on down.
I'm not clear on how the taking an entire road, how that hinders or prevents proper growth and development.
Let me acknowledge what he said about your description not taking that portion.
If what we're talking about, we're just talking about the only portion that's going in is the other half of 222nd Street, where half of the city is currently, or half of 222nd Street is currently within the city. So it's just a portion of 222nd Street. The rest would remain in the county.
Well, the problem is I want to support I want to move this through because I want them to build their substation. I want to do it as quickly as possible, but it seems like we have a half-baked cake here.
Commissioners, Chris Carey with PPP and Virus Solutions on behalf of Evergy. To the extent it helps, I understand that there are some issues with the actual legal description and the exhibits. Evergy is more than happy to bring in our surveyor, Bartlett & West, to help resolve those issues at our expense. We would really like to move forward with this project as quickly as we can, and we hate to see administrative challenges hold up the improvement of the electrical grid in our area. So to the extent we can offer that type of support to both the city and the county to come up with a resolution. We understand that there are potentially disagreements in terms of who's taking what, but to the extent we can help clarify what is actually on the table, we're happy to do that, particularly if we could get some type of conditional approval today so that we can move forward with our design process and our procurement process so we're not delaying this development down the road.
I just got one thing, and maybe this is too far down the line now, but really I've seen this as a problem between the two entities going on way too long. honestly think if we'd had elected officials and county elected officials sit down at the table, we wouldn't be sitting here. We've got some hard feelings going, and I think that's where we need to take out the staff in this. Not blaming anybody whatsoever. I think we could have got to where we needed to get to. I know I've wanted to sit down with some of the elected officials down Tonga, Chris, and a few others, and may resolve this. So that's just one point. The second thing is, Dave, does the law state everything you've said to us so far? Is that state statute, or how are we getting to where the decision you've made?
Commissioner, the statutory guidance that's provided to you by 12520CA3 is basically that when an island annexation is presented to you, as Chris looked accurately stated,
right,
you must examine it under the criteria of, does the proposed annexation hinder the proper growth and development of the area? If the answer to that is yes, it does hinder that, it's implied you would reject the annexation. If you find it does not, it's implied that you would approve the annexation and the city could finalize the annexation by the actual adoption of the ordinance. Again, the real issue here is sort of is not an appropriate answer when somebody's asked, are you in the city of Tonganoxie or not? Lack of clarity is the real concern here. It's not the area to be taken. It's not the Board of County Commissioners does not want Evergy to be able to improve the grid system for the southern part of the county. I don't believe that's even an issue. I think the real issue here is staff has identified that there are discrepancies between the legal descriptions provided, the map that the city provided to you, and the lack of clarity as to where the boundaries go. Now, statutorily, the county is supposed to consider this matter within 30 days of the submission of the ordinance by the city. You're within the 30 days today's hearing. If you wish to perhaps table this matter for additional staff discussion or face-to-face discussion with the governing body of the city of Tonganoxie, I believe you could do so with the consent of the city of Tonganoxie, rather than making a finding this morning that would either approve or disapprove of the annexation. I do think the words of the representatives of Evergy need to be taken into account, though, that this is not a matter of pure academia. It's not a matter that can be easily handled within the next year or so. It needs to be determined quickly so we don't have brownouts in the near future in the city of Tonganoxie.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
What about the suggestion that he brought up about conditional approval?
I'm not aware of any provisions for a conditional annexation, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I just feel like this is deja vu all over again. We just did this 30 days ago, and we never came to a conclusion. And what would you say is the reason why we never came to a conclusion? I mean, it seems like a legal description should have been straightforward.
I believe the legal description is straightforward. I think that any confusion or lack of clarity is likely due to the platting of the property and any discrepancies that may be there. Of course, we want to clarify, we want to make sure we're clear on what actually was platted and included in those lots. But we're talking about roadways again, and the portion of 222nd Street that would remain wholly within the county, as well as County Road 1, that would still remain within the county. I don't understand how that creates any confusion about whether you're in the city or the county. That would necessarily involve interaction between the city and the county, planning processes for any development of those properties or new access points. So the county would be involved.
Well, I mean, why haven't we come to a conclusion up to now?
County Councilor, do you have something?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, in all due respect, at a certain point, I would like to caution you about perhaps discussing legal matters that are privileged under attorney-client privilege. And some discussions, I think, should be an executive session. And I'll just leave it at that. But I'm not certain if the proper forum for direct negotiations or attempt to resolve these matters is appropriate this morning.
Agreed.
Well taken.
I would I'd make a motion that we table this for 30 days.
Second.
Do we have the ability to table it outside of the 30-day requirement?
Well, the city of Tonganoxie could take what they deem to be appropriate legal action challenging this, but if they would agree to not contest that, I think it might lead to a more productive atmosphere in the next 30 days.
The city would certainly prefer to table it than denial, because then it would just be starting the
Okay.
process over again in a fourth
Okay.
resolution.
I'll second that motion.
I'm good with that.
Is that, you said 30 days?
Motion and a
30
second.
days.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
I
in
don't
voting
want this
with
to go on any
Commissioner.
longer.
Do we need to
than it
name
has
the
to.
date certain?
Yeah, what
So we
day?
need to have whatever the date, the
There-
meeting
what
is,
is 30
just so that
days?
you know. We can't just,
I have a calendar.
I do. Would be 1, 2, 3, be the 3rd of July.
What?
June.
Or, I'm sorry. Sorry, what's the wrong way?
What calendar are you looking at, Jeff?
For the 4th of
Be the
July.
1st of May.
You either got to go May 1st or
1,
May.
2,
You got a different
3,
handle.
4,
Unless you want to call it
May
special.
Do May
1st
1st.
of May.
My motion's to table this to May 1st.
3rd of July sounds better.
You did.
I second the motion for May 1st.
May 1st. Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, beginning voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
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 Chairman, members of the commission, I'm going to state something, please correct me if my understanding is incorrect. Is it my understanding you would also direct staff to communicate with the city of Tonganoxie to attempt to have
An MOU.
these issues resolved prior to the May 1st meeting?
Yes, sir.
Certainly will.
It would be I would have no problem with that as long as we're all playing nice. But if we're not, I'd rather prefer the elected officials to a certain degree get involved.
We're all playing nice.
Inasmuch as I believe there's a common goal here, if we determine that intervention by the elected officials is needed prior to May 1st, we'll certainly convey that.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
And can I ask a question of legal staff? Which, are you both handling this together, or which legal staff member is handling this?
I think we'll be doing it together, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Very good.
That
Okay.
concludes our formal board action list. Presentations and discussion items from anyone on the board.
I don't
Beginning
know.
with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Okay, last week attended Fairmount Township meeting. We have a JCAB meeting this Thursday.
Tomorrow.
Is anybody going to go to the LCDC at Deer Ridge? Have you RSVP'd?
Yeah,
on
my
your sign there?
RSVP.
I have to.
Yeah, okay, we got 2 people going, and I'll step out.
Unless you wanted to go and then
Put it
mine
on
will
the-
step out.
We can put it on the agenda and anybody could go.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, put it on the agenda, because it's pretty close. And then the RSVP for the Supreme Court breakfast.
Well, it's not necessarily open to anybody because you had to have reservations.
That's right.
We
You
have to
have
pay.
reservations.
That's right.
We're good, I can list. You guys can handle it. And then the RSVP by April 11th for the Supreme Court breakfast down at the riverfront is,
I'm planning on attending that.
okay, everybody planning on going?
I think so.
So we'll all go, all right. Yeah, I think that's all I had.
Okay. Commissioner Stevens.
Just a couple notes from what a couple people cited was about the county and how we help try to help folks that are in need. We have one of the best council on agings in the state. It's acknowledged, and
No doubt.
they do a lot. And I know we've all gone and delivered the Meals on Wheels, but they have a fantastic program and they're doing a great job.
Yes.
And these folks really need the help. They really need the help. A lot of them.
I think this board has approved a lot for that with the new facility and upgrading the vehicles.
Absolutely.
Also, on property taxes, this board has supported major changes in property taxes, and we've been advocating for that. We've tried to keep our budgets under control, and we're supporting LAVTR funding to the county, and we've supported the cap on property taxes. And the partner in this is the state legislators. Go ahead and pass it. Let the voters decide. And that's what's very disappointing is we're seeing very little movement, and the bill that they have adopted is going to only give you about $200 worth of property tax relief. They can come back and tell us that they cut property taxes when they cut that school mill levy, but it's very little when you're getting huge increases every year.
Inadequate.
So,
How's the tax off Social Security coming along?
well, that was in the, I don't know, I heard the whole thing was torpedoed, so I don't know where the
That's what I
latest.
mean.
I don't know what the latest
It's a
is.
mess.
I don't know, Mark.
You can't get tax off Social Security for over
So,
fixed income people. You can't get anything.
And that's terrible.
but what's,
It's frustrating.
folks need help.
Commissioner Cause, you have anything?
I just attended the Transit Authority meeting last Wednesday afternoon. That was, I think that's all I did.
You know what?
But I also,
I'm sorry, Vicki.
Anybody else that's here, there are bracelets and pins for child abuse prevention. If anybody that's here in the audience would like to pick one on your way out, please pick one up and take it with you, or two. It's getting information out and advocating for child abuse prevention. And that's the month that we're acknowledging this month. And the courthouse will be blue.
I just piggyback on what Commissioner Stevens said. On the Social Security thing, I hear a lot of state legislators saying they're upset with counties because the property tax. First of all, I think Mr. Klemp said it correct. We don't control that. But the second thing is, if you're concerned about having to leave Kansas and go to Missouri or whatever, one of the easiest fixes for the elderly is quit taxing that Social Security.
Exactly.
I mean, that isn't so hard. I just get so frustrated that we can't make any kind of decision except we're going to pass a law that protects killing a canine police dog, and that's even a discussion. I mean, come on, folks. Let's get something done up there. Play nice with each
If
other.
the bill stood alone, it would pass. But when you attach it to all kinds of garbage,
But that's the problem, though, Doug.
It's the game.
We don't have anybody up there that's will stand on something alone. That's enough. I'm finished.
you have blood pressure going up.
Yeah, I feel it right now.
Alarm's going to go off on your
These
wall.
bills together, it is a problem.
That
Oh,
is the problem.
It is.
That's the
And
game.
then playing games with the gut and go stuff, and just it's just
We
ridiculous.
should have just bundled everything here today and passed
Be
it.
done with it. I don't have anything in particular further.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a work session.
Yeah.
5 minute. Oh,
5 minute break.
5 minute
All
break.
right.
motion to
Aye.
adjourn.
Thank you.
Adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
We are adjourned.